Hi, I'm Esther Emery. I'm the homestead wife from the DIY and homesteading channel Fauchematic Off Grid. And you're on my personal channel right now, and I usually do a Thursday video, which is a story, but I am completely off the rails today. I did a video and I just felt all day today that I needed to do something else, which is a little bit harder for me to do. And so I put it off all day, and here it is almost dusk, and I'm just barely doing my Thursday video. So I'm just gonna hold on to my soul sisters here because I need to tell a true story about marriage. It isn't entirely public knowledge, but 7 years ago, my marriage was essentially over. There was infidelity both directions, and we were just calling it off. We were at an end. And that was now the halfway point in 14 years of marriage. My husband and I have made dramatic changes in order to make a lifestyle in which we both get to take up our full amount of space and we both get to be our full selves without buying into the lie that it's a competition, that scarcity is the ruler and there's only so much room. We decided instead to change the rules so that we both could do the things that we wanted to do. It's unusual for me to respond to celebrity stories, but there are a few celebrity stories that are on my heart right now in the field of people that I pay attention to, which is women writers. Some of you may have heard of the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, who's one of the most successful women writers ever. And she has recently separated from her husband, and that's something that's on my mind right now, and I think is maybe on some other people's mind as well. It's particularly hitting a chord for me because I was already paying attention to another female writer, Glennon Melton, who writes in the Christian market about authenticity and love, and is one of my favorite writers ever. And she just released the book Love Warrior, which is about fighting for her marriage, and also made the announcement that her marriage is also ending. I do want to be careful not to comment negatively on either Elizabeth Gilbert or Glennon Melton personally. I don't mean to criticize their choices, and I think that this is really important because I have personal experience with my mother being a person who had fame or notoriety, some exposure, and I know what it's like to be to have people having opinions about things they don't know anything about. So on the one hand, I think it is possible that having fame or exposure can make it harder to have healthy relationships, but it's even more likely that having people looking at you like you're a product to be consumed rather than as a full individual allows people to have very warped perceptions of what's really going on in your life. So I have no desire to comment in particular on these stories, except how they become a narrative, like I said, out in the wild. These big pictures out in the wild, because I think clearly they're telling a story about women finding themselves by leaving their marriages. And I want to offer a counter narrative to that. And yet also there's a caveat there, which is that I do believe that some marriages need to end. And I do believe there is such a thing as abuse. There is such a thing as gaslighting. There is such a thing as invisible abuse. There are situations where you just need to leave. Women and men, there are situations where it just needs to end. And if you're in one of those situations, I don't want you to hear from me another reason to be shamed or guilty for your experiences. In fact, I don't know that I really am talking to people who are struggling at the end of a marriage. I don't know if that's really who I wanted to tell this story for. Maybe it's more for the beginning of the next thing, or for the middle of something, or for the children of these marriages to understand what is possible in terms of being particularly a woman looking for an authentic life, and particularly a woman who takes up a lot of space, a woman who has maybe a lot to say, or feels a very strong call, and may feel that in opposition to a marriage relationship in such that it feels like it's one or the other. I know for sure that that's what it looked like to me. It looked like I could either be my full self or I could be married, and I could not have both. So there are these narratives kind of in the wild about marriages that are ending, and they're particularly close to my heart because these are women that I respect and admire. They're women who pursue authentic, free life, who speak with their full voices, and who are, in some ways, are role models for me. So I wanted to share what it's been like for me to be someone who has been in a broken marriage and stayed. And then also 7 years later being in a place where that same marriage that I thought I was going to leave has become a very healthy and vibrant place where I feel like I own my full self and have found a lot of authenticity. And I just kind of want those two versions of myself to almost have a conversation with each other and say, it isn't just one way. It isn't just one way for anybody. Well, there was something that my husband said to me, which changed the game for me. He shouted it, which is not why I heard it, although I do remember quite viscerally how it was said. He said, "Why do you keep protecting me from you? I love you." And that was, it was a turning point for me to actually hear those words. I'm glad I heard them, and I'm glad he said them, because I had to then retrace and examine how much I was retreating from my marriage relationship because of a fear of being my full self in the marriage relationship. So here's the lie I want to pick out. It's not a lie that women should be their full selves. It's a lie that marriage as a construct doesn't allow that. And I know that I had reasons to believe that a man wasn't going to be able to handle my full intelligence, wasn't going to be able to handle my full strength, my capacity for leadership, my interest in and willingness to be an articulate critic of social constructs and of the way that society works. I can definitely see that it's possible that someone would be threatened by that or not able to interact with that. But the fact is, I never gave my husband a chance until he demanded that I do. And that is what saved our marriage and saved our story. And that is what allows me to sit here now in front of the dream home that he's building, which is his dream, doing what I do, which is narrative and writing and being able to search into the depths of human experience and to be able to offer something of value to other human beings without that having any kind of a muzzle on, without being unable to speak my full truth. If this helps even one person, it's worth sharing. I just want to present the idea that maybe it's the idea of marriage that needs to expand to make room, rather than throwing a marriage away in order to make room for yourself in a new life. Again, I don't want to judge any person who's in any particular place, but isn't there also a story about claiming where we've been and holding on to where we've been and staying and claiming enough and growing where we are? I hope that story exists. I hope that story is one that can be heard and can be shared, because that's my thread in this tapestry. That's my story of being saved and of my marriage being saved.
If my story is rare, it may be that it was rare luck. I have been close enough to divorce to understand that no one knows the cost of it. better than the individuals involved. Society does not need to be telling women the cost of divorce. We need to be listening. We need to be opening up our ears and listening to hear the cost of divorce. And then visioning and living into a set of values, relationship values, where a woman doesn't have to choose between being her full self and being in a family.
That it may be that as women who are called to be strong, who are called to be powerful, who are called to shape our family lives and the lives around us, maybe we don't have to break our families to get free. Maybe at our utmost strength, we are able to mold and reshape our families and our marriages so that there is plenty of room for us to be everything that we are called to be. I'm Esther Emery, and thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you next week.